we go with this week's Phil Steele Plus Tour. 5-2 last week, 38, 17, and 3 the last 7 weeks. Now, the main purpose of the tour is for all you folks who have joined Phil Steele Plus. I want to show you how to use everything that's on Phil Steele Plus so you can use it to the fullest. But we also give you some free plays. Got more free plays for you today. Let's start off with the one thing I want to point out here. Follow me on Twitter at PhilSteele042. I put out things all to the time. Like here, Alabama opens up a huge 24.5-point favorite over Auburn. Surprisingly, it's only the highest in the series in 6 years. Just back in 2012, Alabama was minus 34.5 and won that game 49-0. So if you're thinking rivalry dog, and how did I find that out? I just went to Alabama, and then I went to the last 40 years results. I said, boy, when's the last time Alabama was that big of a favorite? And it stopped right here. 2012, Auburn. Minus 34.5 against Auburn, 49-0. They led 42-0 at the half. And these 40-year results take you all the way back to 1976. So had it been 40 years ago was the last time they were favored, you would have been able to look it up on Phil Steele Plus just by going to the history pages here, which also, this is neat, tells you who the coach was each year, what they did in conference play each year, yardage-wise, record-wise, and then what they did overall. Showed you what their special teams rank was, everything at your fingertips, every team, and that takes you back the last 40-plus years, actually, on Phil Steele Plus. It's like having your own little encyclopedia. And once again, it's got the spread. Let's hone in here in 1976. You want to know what the spread was in Auburn, Alabama? Alabama's a 14-point favorite, and they won 38-7. So there you go. All the way back to 1976 for these spread updates. And it's all available on Phil Steele Plus. Now, let's go here. We'll get off it. Remember, at PhilSteele042. Give me a follow today. Right now, we're at 122,507 followers. And growing, but let's go to Phil Steele. Click here, and we're going to go, and this is the home page for Phil Steele. A lot of great things here, by the way. Like here, college offense and defensive average yards per game. Alabama's offense is 162 yards better than what their opponent's average coming in. Defense 151, add them together 313. That's number one. Look at this team here. Texas A&M's fifth best in the country at plus 179. Mississippi State will rise a little bit here. And if you were looking at this chart last night, you would have said, hey, I like Mississippi State. I mean, they were plus 159 yards per game above their opponent averages, seventh best mark in the country. And they, of course, wiped out Ole Miss last night. So you get these blogs, strength of wins, pain of losses. This counts for if you beat a team, you get credit for every FBS team they've accumulated. If you lose to a team, you get a credit for every single loss they've accumulated. You look at a team like Notre Dame, 55-0, Clemson 53-0. And here's a team in here that has one loss, Michigan. They're 51-0. Why 0? Because the team they lost to, Notre Dame, doesn't have any losses. So they got credit for all of Notre Dame's losses, which is 0. I find that one fascinating each week. But go to the front page, philsteele.com. Look that stuff up. But we're going to go and start in the FBS. Click on the FBS. Go to team pages. I'm in because I'm a Phil Steele Plus member. You should be in because you're a Phil Steele Plus member. The first game we're going to look at is BYU and Utah. The Holy War. First of all, I love this rivalry game. It's one of my top 10 rivalries. Second of all, I love the name, Holy War. That's great. Now, Utah is playing at a higher level than BYU, and I'm going to show you that in average game grades. In the Pac-12, Utah. Now, if you want, by the way, on these team pages for the FBS, you see this. If you don't know your conferences, right here's alphabetical order for you. But we're going to look at Utah and BYU. The average game grade shows Utah is playing at 100.6 level, BYU 85.4. The game is at Utah, so now we know why Utah is an 11.5-point favorite. Average game grades would actually favor them higher. But here's why I like BYU plus 11.5 over Utah, and it is the series history. Now, last year, and our buddy Todd, who does the website, does a great job. but he's got a little behind this year. We did the FCS magazine, the NFL magazine, so it doesn't have all of these updated. So what you have to do for some of the conferences this year is where BYU plays Utah, you click on the game. It shows you every game for 2016, and then you just have to add in the 2017. Now, next year, we're not doing an FCS magazine. You can get all your FCS information right here on Phil Steele Plus, and that'll give him some time. He'll have this stuff done over the summer, so you'll be able to click on the last 22 years matchups for each and every team while you're looking at the matchups over the summertime. They'll all be up to date. But this is what we're dealing with right now. And the thing I want to point out is when BYU plays Utah, the games are almost always close. In fact, over the last 22 years, 17 times the game's been decided by 7 points or less. Here's a 1-point game. Let's first of all take a look at what happened last year. Last year, it was a 19-13 final, a 6-point game. Now we click here, so that's 1. Here's 2, a 1-point game, 7-point game, 7-point game, 3-point game. There's 1 blowout, 1-point game, 3-point game, 2 blowouts, 7-point game, 2-point game, 7-point game, 3, 7, 7, 7, 3, 2, 6. When these two get together, it's almost always decided by 7 points or less. And once again, with this one, you could go to the last 40 years' results. Let's go back and see what year that took us to. That took us all the way back to 1997. You want to go back further in 1997? Just click on last 40 years results. And here we go, 1997. So we'll see what they did here. That was higher than the 7 points. That was higher. So back then it loses a little bit, but 17 of the last 22 years. This thing's been decided by 7 or less. Now, something else I want to point out. BYU plays much better as an underdog. They were an away underdog at Arizona, and look at this. They pulled out the win, had the yardage edge. They were an away underdog at Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin, pretty good team. They pulled the upset in that game. Now, the Washington game, they did not. But here, at Boise on the blue turf, they were a double-digit road dog, only lost by 5. In fact, had a 61-yard edge in the game. Let's see how that game was played. We come over here. See these box scores? They tell you how the game was played. So this shows you over here that Boise 24, well, no, that's 2 years ago. Sorry about that. Come over here to last year's game, or this year's game. Click on the box score, and we see that BYU got a field goal here to pull within 21-16 with 6:32 left in the game and ended up coming up short. So it was a game. You get that on every single game, by the way. You see all these highlighted things here? If you want to go back, and these I find valuable here, too. They see the half times. I use them all the time. Tells you what kind of game it was at the half. So sometimes you'll see a team wins by 24. You go back and look, and they were up by 42 at the half. And then you click over here, and you can see when the opposing team scored, if there's garbage yards involved. I love that factor. So you have a team that plays well as an underdog, has played big boys tough as a dog. Series history clearly says BYU. And I like BYU's defense. Look at this over here. They're holding opponents to 86 yards below their season average. That's number 18 in the country. And remember, with Utah, I know it didn't affect them last week, but with Utah, they lost their quarterback. See, Tyler Huntley, he went out here to injury, missed the Oregon and Colorado game, and Zach Moss, same thing. He has missed the last 2 games. And one final thing to point out, while the Holy War is important to Utah and it is their final home game, they do have a Pac-12 championship game on deck to look forward to. So add it all up. Anything over 7 points I'm taking. The spread's 11.5. We're taking BYU plus 11.5 over Utah. Now, you know I like these run game domination games. I've been showing them to you all year. We got a whole bunch of green on the run offense. We got a whole bunch of red on the rush defense. And these things have had great success. Last week on the Doug Kazarian podcast on ESPN, I used one. And it was Iowa against Illinois, and Iowa just ran the ball down their throat. But let's take a look at this one here. Georgia Southern, a team I've been using a lot this year for different reasons, and they've been playing well. They just came up short in these last 2 games. This was a sandwich game. Remember, I pointed that one out, a massive sandwich game for Georgia Southern off the big win against App State, with Troy on deck. The fact that ULM was off a bye to help them prepare for Georgia Southern's option, and look what happened. They got upset, and then they played a decent game against Troy but lost, bounced back with a big win over Coastal, and they're taking on Georgia State. But as usual, And you've seen this when I use my FCS games as well. Here we have a green team. These guys run the football and run the football well. 259 yards per game rush, 5.2 yards per carry. They run the football. Georgia State, they struggle to stop the run. 248 yards per game on the season, 6.6 yards per carry. On the just in FCS Sun Belt play, 248 yards per 6.8 yards per carry and 71% completions. Now, Georgia Southern's not going to throw the football. They're not at their best when they throw the football. They're better when they just run it. They will be able to run it, but if they have to throw, they're throwing against a defense that gives up 71% completion. So I love that matchup there. They give opponents 73 yards above their season average on the year. Georgia Southern should be able to win this one and win it big. The spread, by the way, is Georgia Southern. Let me take a look. I'm going to just hold on one sec while I find the line on this game. I'm thinking it's 11. Is it 11 on this game? There it is. 10.5. All right, we got 10.5 out there. So we're going to take Georgia Southern minus 10.5. And the other thing I want to point out, while Georgia State is at home has not been a great place for them the last couple of years. You look at 2017, they we'll look here. Lost to Tennessee State, lost to Troy, did beat South Alabama, lost to App State, and lost to Idaho. And this year at home, they beat Kennesaw State, which is a good FCS team, lost to Western. They did beat ULM, lost to Coastal, lost to Texas State. Coastal and Texas State are two poor Sun Belt teams, and they lost to both in those games. So home field has not been a great advantage. And, one other thing I'll toss out here. Last year, Georgia State upset Georgia Southern 21-17. So got a little payback coming here for Georgia Southern. This one was a game that Georgia State pulled the upset 21-17. And so you got revenge working for you. You've got the offensive run against a weak run defense. I love it when this is green and this is red. Automatic play in my book. And you got the fact that they haven't been playing very well at home this year. So add it all up. I'm taking Georgia Southern minus the 10.5 as my run game mismatch. Now let's go to the average game grades for the week. These have been doing pretty good this year. Well, everything's got to be doing good when you're hitting 69% over 7 weeks. We're going to take a look at Oklahoma. And I always like to put the visitor on the left. So I'm going to line up Oklahoma State on the left. I'm going to line up TCU, the home team, on the right. This one's got a couple things going for it besides just the game grade. Now, the game grade, TCU at 90.9, Oklahoma State 95.4. You do have to factor in the home field edge. And I believe I have the home field edge, by the way, in the magazine for every team. And I look over everything for the home field edge. Straight up record, how they do yardage-wise, how they do against the spread. And I give TCU a 4.5 home edge. So add in the 4.5 home edge here. You got 95.4 versus 95.4. Okay, so the stats right there say the game should be even. TCU's a 5-point dog. Let's make the case for TCU. First of all, let's look at the situation for Oklahoma State. Now, Oklahoma State played Texas. Massive home game. They came into that game 4-3. Their season was going nowhere. They were fired up at home. Texas had their top two cornerbacks suspended for the first quarter. And if you look here on the box score, Oklahoma State lit it up in the first quarter. In fact, this touchdown that they got in the second quarter came early. Okay, they were set up in good field position. They led 24-7. Texas got their cornerbacks back. They pulled within this at the end, 38-35, came up short. But I think had they had their cornerbacks the entire game, they probably would have won. They go into Baylor. They come out with a 4-point loss. Oklahoma, Bedlam, take it to the wire, 1-point loss. And last week against West Virginia, once again, click on the box score, they're down 41-31. All right, there's 7 minutes to go in the game. Now there's 5 minutes to go in the game. They score a touchdown with 4:47 left, and now they score a touchdown with 42 seconds left and beat West Virginia. What an upset. Top 10 team. That's 4 straight grinders, guys. And now they got to go on the road. Plus, last week's win, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is bowl eligible. Whew, sigh of relief. What have you got left in the tank for this week against TCU? Now let's look at TCU. And I got some interesting facts here. TCU Yeah, it's been a miserable season for them. They're just 5-6. But they did beat Kansas State at home in their last home game, and they beat Baylor on the road last week. They need one more win to get to a bowl. Gary Patterson, this just in, one of the best head coaches in the entire country. Now, I love defensive home dogs, okay? Let's take a look at this. Oklahoma State's defense on the year. This is how many yards they are against the opponent's average. Oklahoma State gives up to opponents 30 yards above what they come in averaging. So if you average 400 yards per game, you're going to get 430 against Oklahoma State. That's number 99 in the country. Let's take a look at TCU. They are holding their opponents to 82 yards per game below their season average. If you average 400 yards per game, you get 318 against TCU. That's number 22 in the country. Big edge, TCU. Now, yes, Oklahoma State has the offensive edge, and TCU just lost their quarterback last week in Michael Collins after losing Sean Robinson. See, Robinson went out, Michael Collins went out. They're all the way down to Grayson Mulestein. When I talked to Coach Patterson in the spring, they call him the Mule. He said he knows the offense extremely well. He's not going to win you a lot of games, especially in the long term, but he can get you in and out of a game, knows the offense, and sort of reminded me of the Oregon game a few years back. Let's go back to the Oregon Bowl game. Once again, when you have Phil Steele Plus, look at this. This is at my fingertips. I built this website for myself. I handicap my games off of Phil Steele Plus. I can go back to 2017. I'm looking for the bowl game against Oregon. Don't even know what year it is, but I'm going to figure it out in a second. Right here, Alamo Bowl, Oregon. And there is your bowl game. And let's take a look at the individual stats that year. Boykin was the starter. Then they went to Foster Samuel, Sean Nixon. And it's not even listing the quarterback that played in this game, unfortunately. And I don't see a box score. Let me see if I get a box score on the Oregon site. Does Oregon's have the box score in that game? Hoping they do. Here it is. All right. Don't know why the TCU one's not updated, but here's the Oregon one. So anyway, TCU goes to a quarterback here, Brian Kohlhausen. Now, Brian Kohlhausen had very little action in his career. And not much was expected of Brian Kohlhausen. He was the third-string quarterback, for crying out loud, starting a bowl game. Look at Brian Kohlhausen, 28 of 45, 351 yards, one interception. Kohlhausen even ran in the game-winning touchdown in overtime. Kohlhausen ran 11 of 45 on top of his passing day. That from a third-string quarterback. So, what does that tell me? That tells me that I think TCU can win with the third-string quarterback in Grayson Mulestein, who knows the offense extremely well and has a spattering of experience. About the same amount of experience as they did back when they played Oregon in the bowl game. So now you add that, you add the defensive edge, you add the huge situational edge. TCU playing to get to a bowl. Oklahoma State on their fifth straight tough win, just clinched a bowl. I'm taking the TCU Horned Frogs +5 over Oklahoma State. Let's get on to those FCS games, guys. These what are hitting the 90% on the year. And here's the thing. I don't know anything about the FCS. I rely on Phil Steele Plus. Here's what I do. I take a look at the computer forecast. We have a computer forecast in every game. Now, we don't give that away in Inside the Press Box. But we do give the computer forecast on every FBS game. Well, the first thing I do is I look at the games where the difference is 6 points or more. Okay? Circle those. Then I open up my Phil Steele Plus and I look for a matchup I like. I'll go through maybe 5, 6, 7 matchups, and once I find a couple I like, those are the ones I use for the week. You could handicap like this on your own. You know nothing about the Sun Belt, right? I don't know anything about the FCS. You get inside the press box. And when you get inside the press box, you get my computer forecast on every game. Look at the ones which are 7 points or 6 points different from the Vegas spread. Circle those. Then go on Phil Steele Plus, do your homework, and maybe you could be hitting 90% at home, just like I'm hitting 90% on the FCS, a sport I don't even follow. I can't even tell you the players on these teams. But look how we've done on the FCS. Last week, 2 more outright upset winners. Now, the slate's limited this week. I don't have 50 games to choose from, all right? We only have about 12 to choose from. So I'm going to look at one game. And we're going to look at San Diego. And to be honest with you, I can't even tell you their nickname. Let's go find their nickname. San Diego. And they are on the road The Toros, okay? Their head coach is Dale Lindsey. Just found that out. How did I find that out? Right here, Phil Steele Plus. And they are taking on Nicholls State. All right, let's go find Nicholls State. First of all, I have to get to FCS team pages. I need them in alphabetical order. I have no clue what conferences they're in. So let's go to Nicholls State. Nicholls State. There it is. And let's line these teams up. Now, first of all, I will say this. My computer said on the game that Nicholls State is going to win this thing 41-19. So that's a nice 22-point win. It is showing Nicholls State with 605 yards versus 259 yards. So that got my attention. That's saying my computer really likes Nicholls State. Now, I wanted to see if there's a reason why. And what do we have come up here? Oh, look at this green, guys. And look at this red over here, guys. We have a run game mismatch. Yes. On the year, San Diego, even though they've got this great record, and these teams, this looks like they're playing in a pretty light conference. Their conference opponents are Stetson, Morehead State, Butler, Jacksonville, Drake, Davidson. These opponents look like this is a stronger conference. I mean, we're talking Sam Houston State. They also played Kansas. They also played Tulane, Abilene. Not Abilene Christian, but Houston Baptist. Yeah, Abilene Christian's a pretty tough team. Let me see. I want to see how tough a team Abilene Christian is. I don't know. I want to look it up. Abilene Christian. Okay, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 4, and starting to play pretty well down the stretch. Plus 66 yards per game on the year for Abilene Christian. All right, so now we've got that, and I'm on San Diego over here. And we line them up. And so now you have a run defense that gives up 222, 5.9 yards per carry. In fact, when they got to conference play, they're giving up 6.5 yards per carry against a team that runs the football well. Nicholls State, whose head coach is Tim Rebo. Once again, just found that out. They play in the Southland Conference. And these guys, look how they've been running. They started out the year slow, but that's because they played Kansas, Tulane, McNeese. Here, look at all this offense. Wow. They're averaging 5.4 yards per carry once they get to conference play. Once again, I think this conference superior to this conference. So I'm going to take these stats stronger. They're plus 139 yards per game on the year. They're plus 30. So you have that nice run game aspect going for you against a weaker run defense. That's good. They're at home. How have they done at home? They beat Sam Houston State. They beat Lamar. They beat Incarnate Word. At home, they beat teams by 26 points per game. That's good. San Diego at home beats teams by 20 points per game. On the road, just by 2 points per game. And these two teams here both had winning records. They played on the road. UC Davis and Harvard from different conferences. They got beat by 33. They got beat by 22. So San Diego just gave us 789 yards to Davidson on the ground and won the game. I'm going to take advantage of that for weeks on end. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that they lost. Now, my FCS pages are not updated with last week's results. So I'm not sure what happened in last week's results. They'll be updated by the time that you see this podcast, or not podcast, but by the time you see this Phil Steele Plus tour. But I'm going to take Nicholls State minus 14 over San Diego as the FCS play. And, quick note to sign up to InsideThePressBox.com. Just go to InsideThePressBox.com. You can get my FBS and NFL pages this week, both regularly $29.99 for just $9.99 if you mention the code word tackle. Type in the code word tackle, and we're going to use that same code here to sign up to Phil Steele Plus. Go to the store right here. And Phil Steele Plus right now is $39. That's through the Super Bowl, guys. You can use this all the way through all of November, or all of the rest of November, all of December, all of January, all the FCS playoffs, by the way, which you'll love. Just click here, $39, get you in there. I'm going to view my cart. Look, I got one this week, $39. I'm going to type in the code word. The code word's going to be tackle. Let's type in the code word tackle here. I'm going to apply my coupon. That takes you down to $29. 2 months of Phil Steele Plus for $29. Can you imagine breaking down the bowl games, guys? For $29. You'll know everything about all the teams. And I forgot to show you on the FBS pages. And next year, by the way, we're not doing the FCS magazine, but we will have individual stats for the FCS by the time the season rolls around. But on the, you can look on the, I did show you individual pages before, but I do want to show you that Let's go take a team like Clemson, for example. You just click on the individual player stats. There's your stats for this year, and that's every single game. So you can see what Etienne's doing at running back every game. You can see Trevor Lawrence here didn't play much and then all of a sudden took over as a starter. You can see when Kelly Bryant left the team. You can see who the top receivers are, what they've done on a game-by-game basis. And that goes back and back and back. You want to see what happened back in 2014? Same thing. Just click on it. And the other thing you could check on, and we'll have these all updated by the time the Bowls roll around, is these start charts. That we're filling them in as the season goes on. When the Bowls get here, we'll have them all updated for you. Every player will be in. You can see where the injuries happen. We'll have red up here for when a player lost a start due to injury. Looks like Pollard missed this game with injury here. Take a look at Georgia's offensive line. I think they've been banged up this year. We'll see if that reflects it. Georgia. And we'll go to start chart, see if that's updated. Look at their offensive line. Cleveland missed some games. Thomas, Mays. So Thomas was banged up here. They were a little banged up on the offensive line right here in these games. So factor that into your equation. Like when they played Missouri, looks like they might have been missing 2 starters in that game. But you'll be able to do that in the Bowls as well. So $29 gets you through the rest of the season. Code word tackle. Get inside the press box. You'll want to get those computer forecasts. They really help me out in the FCS. Once again, code word tackle. Now, we also do NFL. And that's, I mean, if you're using this thing in January, that's what you're going to be using it for is the NFL. As I mentioned every week, I like the logo pages here. They're pretty cool. Buffalo is playing Jacksonville this week. And guess what? It's playoff rematch from last year. And if you follow all the playoff rematches from this year, it's been amazing. The team that lost in the playoffs last year has pretty much won in the regular season. Remember Jacksonville beat New England? Then you had Pittsburgh beating Jacksonville. Jacksonville beat New England, I should say. New England beat Jacksonville in the playoffs. Jacksonville beat New England here at home. But this has something to do with the playoffs because last year in the playoffs, right here, Jacksonville knocked Buffalo out of the playoffs 10-3. Now Jacksonville has got to go on the road and play Buffalo. And the thing I want to point out in this game, a couple things I want to point out. This is not just about playoff revenge. It's actually about how the two teams are playing right now. Buffalo's got a doggone good defense. Look at this. They're holding opponents to 65 yards below their season average. That's number 1 in the NFL. Who's got the best defense in the NFL? It ain't Jacksonville. They're number 3. Is that 3? No, number 4. Buffalo is number 1, holding opponents to 65 yards per game below their season average. I like that. So that's a good stat to go on for starters right there. And let's take a look at the last 4 weeks. The last 4 weeks, Jacksonville 0-4. They've been outgained. They didn't have a yardage edge and outgained. Jacksonville over the last 4 weeks is actually minus 26 yards per game. So they're not playing great. Meanwhile, Buffalo over the last 4 weeks, they played Indianapolis, New England, Chicago, and the Jets. They played Chicago. They played New England. They lost both. And yet, over the last 4 weeks, they are plus 50 yards per game. Plus 50. Remember in this game here when they played New England? That was special teams did them in. Let's click on the box. And I appreciate NFL.com. Post these up. We take you right to NFL.com for these. And you see that New England actually got a 84-yard interception return for a touchdown. And no, I'm sorry, that was the Chicago game I'm thinking about. It was 2 special teams, but they did get that long 84-yard interception return for a touchdown at the end of the game. Buffalo really outplayed them a good portion of that Monday night game. That interception return for a touchdown was huge. And then, so the Chicago game, look at this. They outgained Chicago 264 to 190. They were minus 5 in turnovers. So they have plus 50 yards per game the last 4 weeks. They are minus 26 yards per game the last 4 weeks. I'm not so sure Buffalo's not the better team. Yet they're a home underdog. And you got cold weather. It's going to be cold in Buffalo. Jacksonville not used to cold weather. I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills plus 3 as your NFL play. Join Phil Steele Plus today. Join Inside the Press Box. 5 plays this week, 38, 17, and 3 the last 7 weeks. But the main thing that we're trying to accomplish here is to get you to use Phil Steele Plus. And by the way, if you sign up for Inside the Press Box, you get Phil Steele Plus for free. So you get access to my computer. You get access to all these stats and all this information on Phil Steele Plus each and every week. Make sure you sign up today. Have yourself a great weekend. I will be back next week with yet another edition of the Phil Steele Plus Tour. And thanks.